What is going on, everybody? This is Brandon from ComixKings. Welcome, everybody, back to the kingdom. Welcome if this is your first time here. And let's all give a nice, warm welcome to Phillip Kennedy Johnson on his immaculate return to the channel. Phillip, thank you so much for being here. How are you doing today?
My pleasure, man. Thanks for having me.
No problem. You're always welcome. I know back on IGTV, you were super excited to talk about all the stuff that we're going to talk about today. I know you're like, I can't announce it, but you're going to have fun. It's going to be great. Boom. And I knew you just wanted to announce it, but look where we are today. It's there. Writer of Alien, writer of Superman Action Comics, and of course, everybody knows The Last God. Man, such great work going on. I can't thank you enough for all the work you've been putting out into the community.
Oh my God. It's such a pleasure.
It has been fantastic. So we already talked about your origin story into comics. So just one more time, if you want to reiterate that for new people that are new to the channel.
Yeah, sure. I mean, everyone's got their own story, how they busted in. It's kind of hard to get into comics and everyone's got a weird way in. But I was actually, I was a musician first and am still. But I got a younger brother who was an illustrator and wanted to bust into comics himself as an illustrator and didn't really know how to get started. And I'd always loved to write, but hadn't really been doing it for a while. And I was just like, dude, I got this job in the Army. I know there's another job in the Army for illustrators where you could join and, you know, they'll train you in all this different software that illustrators use. You can get the GI Bill to go to art school. And he ended up moving in with me and getting ready for the Army tests and stuff and joining the Army as an illustrator. And that whole time that he was doing that, though, when he was prepping for his Army career, he and I were going to comic conventions because we were both from a super small town. Right. With nothing around, barely didn't have internet really to speak of, and just didn't know shit about comics, except that we loved to read them, and that we had both been, you know, artists ourselves and loved to be a part of it, but didn't know anything about the industry. So we started going to cons together, and you know, checking out stores in the area, and especially the store that you and I were just talking about offline here, Third Eye Comics, which was just a new 100%. Thing at the time. That was their first shop. So yeah, we just kind of navigated the comic scene together, and I started writing scripts for him to illustrate. I wrote like basically just what was a poem for him to, you know, set to illustrations, and then a short story after that. And then he started getting busy. He got into the Army, he got busy with his own stuff, and I started looking for other illustrators to work with. By that time, I totally got the bug and just really loved the collaborative nature that I found in the industry, and just thought that people were super cool. I mean, everyone's so genuine. Nobody's in it for, you know, to get rich or to use other people. It's all just love of the game. And I just really like how genuine everyone was. And yeah, just started looking to other people to work with. And that my first book ended up being Last Sons of America with Boom Studios. And that led to some more work at Boom and Archaea. Got noticed at other publishers, and just kind of took off.
And then out came The Last Guy, you know. And I know you did a book with and I know you and Cy Spurrier did a book together, which Cy Spurrier is also a very talented writer. We were also just speaking about Third Eye Comics, so I do want to give a quick little plug. As you can see in my background, I posted this the other day. Their Alien #1 exclusive variant, guys. There are exclusive. There are Alien variant covers out the butt right now, but this is one of the ones to get. You can contact Third Eye, go to the website, order it. It's in the description below, as well as all the links for Phillip Kennedy Johnson, his Instagram, the books that are coming out. Let's give a shout out to the chat, because I do love interacting with you guys. And let's say hello to Travis, who is always here holding it down with the blue wrench as the moderator. We got Manny. What is going on? Station is from Bill and Ted. It's good greetings and all that stuff. I don't know if you've seen it before. We got V all the way from New Zealand coming in strong over here. And then we got Comics Will Break Your Heart, Jen, who's I know she was one of the ones who actually informed me about The Last God originally. So big shout out to her.
Well, yeah, thanks for that.
And then we have Michael Conrad. Yeah, you said where people are not into comics. Get rich. Michael Conrad says he's in it for the bag, yo. That's why he's on Wonder Woman.
I know Michael Conrad very well.
Him and Becky were just on the show. Quick little plug to that.
That's awesome.
He was just dang, this guy. He's always joking around. He's a big joker right over there. We got Jorge Pino in here. What is going on, sir? We got Eric, the mustache. What is going on? We got Sheena in here as well. And guys, if you do have a question for Phillip Kennedy Johnson, don't be shy. He's putting out lots of great work. And if I don't think of a question, because, you know, I never do, I just like to go with it, go ahead and drop it down below. But let's talk about what's in the actual background. Alien right now. I know you were one of the announcers for the longest time. How did this project get into your hands?
Oh God, I mean, I've been a psycho for this franchise since I was way too young.
Right.
I've gotten the questions a few times, which of the Alien movies is my favorite, which is the first one I ever saw, and I honestly don't know which one I saw first. I mean, my gut tells me probably the first one, because I mean, I was 8 years old or so when the second one came out, and I feel like I saw the first one before that. I know I was a little young to be seeing Alien, but I don't remember a time before I loved that film, and I can't imagine seeing it and not knowing that what was going to happen to John Hurt. But yeah, I mean, God, ever since that first movie is probably the one that's closest to my heart, because you're just getting your mind blown every few minutes.
Right.
I mean, like when you first see the derelict, and then you're inside of it, and you see the eggs, and then you see the thing on his fucking face, and it just keeps ramping up more. Like every new thing is just this mind blowing moment. It's just like just nuke after nuke after nuke all the way through. So impactful. And the second movie is also just a complete 10 out of 10. But that first movie is so unbelievably hard hitting.
Right.
And visually, I mean, there's no better, in my opinion, there's no better representation of horror visually than the Xenomorph.
Right.
I mean, Giger Xenomorph is just as good as it gets for me.
Right. And like you said, I think what the first one does very well, it captures the emotion of the story of the trilogy that they're going to be telling. And Aliens, it really captures the suspense and the horror in this, because like you're on the edge of your seat because you've seen what the Xenomorph can do, and you're just like, what's coming next? This is, instead of one, there's like 50 that.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like the first 3 movies, I mean, some people shit on the third, but I think it's great. And there's definitely, I mean, I hate that we lose some of the characters that we've come to love by that point, but I love how it just keeps getting, the world keeps getting bigger, like in the first one, it's just on this one little ship. It's just the one alien. And the next one, you're in the nest, and you see different varieties of alien that you weren't seeing before, and you see more interactivity with the the face huggers, and you see the queen. And then the third one, you see is something that comes out from a different animal besides just a human. And that's something that that's an idea that I was playing with even as a kid. After the first 2 films, I remember thinking, what if it came out of something else, and it could be like snake aliens or whatever, and I would like make up these little drawings of different kinds of aliens that would come from different things, because I like the idea that it didn't make sense to me that a humanoid drone would come out of something that's not at all human. I thought it would be really cool if that's why they're such perfect survivors, is because they adapt to whatever the host is, and that's how they adapt to all these environments. And we get to see that. So I mean, the third movie was made just for me in that regard. The fact that we got to see a quadruped Xeno was so exciting to me, and I love that you got to see more of humanity away from Earth. I've got to see more of the world building aside from just the alien. Yeah, God, I'm getting so stoked just talking about it. I just love that whole property. I do think it went off the rails after that. Just that next one. I love the prequels too. Resurrection feels like fanfic, and so do the AVP movies kind of feel like fanfic to me. In my head canon, those don't exist. It doesn't make, they don't make sense to me in the way that the others do. But I mean, you can't question if Prometheus and Covenant are canon because of Ridley Scott's involvement, and I love those movies anyway. But Resurrection's the one I kind of, just don't talk about.
They definitely took that series a little bit too far. But if you can just self-contain yourself to 3, it is by far one of the better franchises. I will always be biased to Star Wars, so we're not going to have that discussion of which sci-fi did better. I mean, unlike Stormtroopers, aliens can aim, so I guess we're going to go with that. I do love this question from the man, Eric the Stash. Do you have more Lascaux stories to tell? That book just kept getting better and better.
Oh, man. Thank you so much for saying that. And yes, I definitely have a lot more to tell in that world. There's actually a huge kind of, not Easter egg, but so the whole story ends with the song, if you recall. And the song that Hakon is singing at the end is kind of a tease for what the next arc could be. I would love to do another story about that from Hakon's past. There's also another story from distant past in that world. There's also a sequel I could do that followed the same characters much further down the road, because I want to see what happens with
Right.
with the Elva and the guild and with Evander and everything after the fact, because it's left in such an interesting place. I would love to explore those characters again. God, I could write seriously, dude. I could write that story the rest of my life.
Oh my gosh,
that
100%.
When I was writing, just fleshing out the world to feel real for the story we were telling, gave us opportunities to, like, all these other arcs kind of came together just in the background that we could very easily delve into for future stories. And I would love to do that. I can't. It would be really hard for me to do it without Ricardo, because his art just defined that book so much.
It really did. His art was phenomenal in that, and he's doing a lot of other projects coming up now. But God,
I wish I could talk more about that, but I can't just yet. But yeah, Ricardo is just such a freak. I mean, his work is almost he's like we just took one of the took one of the Dutch masters of painting and put them in comics modern day, and like now, do superhero stuff. Somebody who's, too good for all of us, and he's just doing this unbelievable work.
Right. 100%. The Last God, I always tell people, is Game of Thrones with a little bit more magic and less boobs. That's what I always say. And it's
fewer boobs.
Fewer, less. Like probably like cut in half, but still enough. But it's a great book, guys. You guys have not read it, definitely hop on. The hardcover is coming out in August, and it collects all 12 issues with more spin-offs from the series. It's a phenomenal read for everyone who kind of. There are a lot of Conan themes in there as well. There's a lot of magics. There's a lot of stuff that you like. So I would say there's a lot of Sandman vibes in there as well.
It's definitely, there's a lot of me in that book. A lot of things I love kind of find their way in. There's, Lord of the Rings is an obvious,
Lord of the Rings as well.
Influence. Honestly, it's more Silmarillion than Lord of the Rings. To me, the Silmarillion, even though it's not as fun it's not really it's not really like a narrative story per se in the way that we're used to. It's more like reading the Old Testament. But as far as world building, it's like a masterclass on how to flesh out an entire world. So that was what I referred to a lot when I was doing the backstory for The Last God. But also, I wanted it to be a little more of a harsh place. I wanted Canaan to be not as shiny and idyllic as some aspects of Middle Earth are. I mean, obviously, Mordor. Not everything there is pretty and nice, but I just wanted to have more of like a Robert E. Howard vibe in places too, like something that's a little more cruel. And I also wanted to get into different religions. One thing that Tolkien's world never really did was get into religion. I mean, you see the truth of what the gods are. You see Iluvata and the Ainur and all that, but you're not seeing different people's interpretations of you're not seeing mythologies. You're seeing like the real God and and what they did. I want to see the made up mythologies and religions and how they interact, and how like the little race wars and stuff like that. I want to see a much more dirty version of religion and how that shaped the world. That's what we did in Last God. We showed not just the true gods, but the false ones as well, and how that all made the races and cultures what they are.
Right. And a lot of times, like, books centered with that, like, medieval time set, that theme is, a lot of things are centered around religion back then, even more today, as we tend to realize. So it's definitely great that you added that aspect. It was great for the characters as well as the world building. So like I've been saying, guys, go check that out. Hardcover looks fantastic. I'm going to tell you all that. I'm going to tell you all that right now.
It's big. It's like 450-ish pages.
It feels like a compendium or like an omnibus.
It's
almost
super sick. It's got every issue. It's got the Songs of Lost Children that Dan Waters and Steve Beach did. It's got
Dan Waters, fantastic.
It's got the source book, like for people who want to make their own campaigns in that world in 5th edition.
100%.
It's got so much cool stuff.
100%. I really like this question right here from J.G. Miller. What does Mr. Johnson feel is the most terrifying aspect of I'm going to butcher this, the Wayland Yutani?
Thanks for chiming in, citizen. So I work with J.G. Miller. He's in the Army with me.
Oh, no way. Thank you for your service.
The most terrifying aspect of Wayland Yutani. It kind of goes back to that. Well, I mean, it's okay. Wayland Yutani represents the corporation that has grown so powerful that it eclipses sovereign nations. Right. Like and that's something that we're going to explore in this story. I mean, you're seeing the first arc right now. There's going to be other arcs, and there's going to be these subplots that lead from arc to arc, like you did in the films. You saw how the androids develop over time. You saw how you visually saw the aliens develop themselves. You saw, the drones, and then the queen, and the quadruped, and then the crazy shit in 4 and everything else. And what I wanted to explore in these arcs in the comic was the growth of Weyland-Yutani beyond anything that could be controlled. Something that is it's just their sheer power, how huge they become, that they outgrow the concept of government. That's the most terrifying aspect. And the fact that they know about this xenomorph, and they will stop at nothing to get it. They have their plan for it. I kind of have this whole idea of evolution, not just on Earth, but like what evolution would look like to, our galaxy, to our universe. And I in my mind, I imagine just just all these echoes of dead civilizations all over the universe, and I like the idea that they all charted a similar path, where they reached a certain level of advancement, and they discovered a certain level of technology, and then they get smart enough and arrogant enough to leave their solar system, and then they find the xenomorph waiting.
Right.
And they're the thing that kind of knocks us back down a rung. And Weyland-Yutani, to me, represents the thing that will lead humanity into extinction. Like through their sheer, corporations grow and grow and grow and grow, and there's nothing to keep them from growing. And Weyland-Yutani represents the idea that it can grow so powerful that eventually it leads us to our own extinction. That's what Weyland-Yutani represents to me, is the end of humanity, just through their sheer power.
Right, and that's all set up due to their hunger for more information on the xenomorph and more exploration to that.
Yeah, there's just this unfettered ambition.
Right, that was the word I was thinking. I was ambition.
Yeah, so that's what makes Weyland-Yutani the bad guy. They just it's power that you can't control.
Right, and my man Rudy here is saying, hit them like show. So if you guys could give the show a little bit of a like, a good thumbs up, subscribe to the channel as well. That's greatly appreciated. And share this with all of your friends. Let them know who's writing Alien, where to find it, and where to watch him talk about it. And that would be over here. So thank you guys so much for all of that. So when Marvel talked to you about writing this book, what were your initial thoughts? How did it all go down? That's something that I would really like to know. Your excitement going towards that.
I'm sorry, I lost you for just a second. You say that one more time?
So talk about the time when Marvel just approached you with this series, how it all got planned out, because it was months ago when you first knew about it.
Yeah, I actually reached out to them because I saw the announcement with everyone else. So I think it was on IGN. I saw that Marvel had acquired the Predator and Alien licenses, and we saw that dope ass art by, I think, David Finch. With you see a xenomorph in the Guardian's ship, and you see the Predator holding Iron Man's helmet, but I want to say his spine is coming out of it. Like it might be his head.
It could be.
And it just looks so incredible. And I was just like, I literally yelled. I was like, oh my God, I can't wait to see what they do with this. I mean, Dark Horse is great. I could not, but Marvel did such amazing work with Star Wars. And seeing that artwork, it just really got me revved up for what they were going to do with Alien and Predator. And I did what I never do, and I reached out to my editor about that. And I assumed that by the time they announced it, I figured they were already sitting on a creative team. I didn't think I was going to get the gig. But I reached out. I was like, you've got to give me an Alien book. Like, I swear to God, you don't know anyone who loves this shit like I do. Nobody loves Alien like me. Ask me any question. I was just like, I was a little intense about it. I was like, I've got to write Alien. I just have to.
Right.
And he straight up kind of did like the Homer into the bushes thing. Like, dude, okay, cool. He was like, wow. He's like, you might be right. I think you really would be a great fit for this. And we had just done, Marvel Zombies Resurrection together. Right. And that had gone extremely well. I was super proud of that book. And I mean, my Alien's DNA is all over that series. Like it's the influence of Alien is super obvious. And even my first ever book, I said that my first book was Last Sons of America, but my first finished book actually was a webcomic called Lost Boys of the U-Boat Bremen. That was a period horror piece. I mean, obviously inspired by the first Alien movie. So yeah, I've been telling the story even before I really was.
Before you were getting into comics, you're telling spin-offs, you said, like with your brother.
Yeah, totally. So I reached out to Jordan White, my editor on Marvel Zombies Resurrection. Jordan's an awesome editor and a great guy. And I just basically try to sell myself like I would crush an Alien story. If there's a spin-off or anything that you want to do, I'm so excited about Alien. And he reached out and said, like, that's actually a great idea. I think you'd be a great fit for it. And so he passed my name on to the editor. And I found out later that actually somebody else within Marvel was kind of pitching for me to get that book, which I didn't know. And so I heard back from Jake Thomas, who's the editor on Alien, and he asked me for some pitches. And I lit him up. I just had a bunch of stuff I wanted to give him, and I kind of opened up the encyclopedia, took up my spectacles, and was like, here's my take on Alien. Here's what I think we should do with it. Here's what I did, and gave him my 20-year plan. Not literally 20 years, but I did have different ideas that we could go. And yeah, they went for it. So now I'm doing awesome. It. I'm gonna hold on to it as long as I can because I friggin' love this book.
Right, and there's like a dream come true. You know, you get to write your childhood movie, like your fan favorite movie. Because at the end of the day, we're all fans, right? All comic book writers, all comic book artists, editors. Like you said earlier, they're in the game for the passion of the industry to drive it forward to new boundaries. And that's exactly what this Alien book is, extending the universe, creating more characters to add to the mythos. So how about you talk about the development of Gabriel Cruz and most importantly, the relationship between him and his son?
Yeah, so one of the staples of the Alien franchise is that there's almost always, at least in the films, there is typically a female protagonist. And Ripley is just such an icon. I mean,
she's a certified badass.
I love Ripley as a character. And honestly, I really love Shaw too from Prometheus. I think she's awesome, and she's super different. They did a great job of keeping Shaw very different from Ripley, and they're both so cool. I forget the name of the character from Covenant. Damn it! She did not speak to me quite as much as the other two, but she was also very powerful, and I just really love those characters. Shaw and Ripley kind of overshadow. I feel like if I were to come out with another female protagonist, kind of in the vein of the others, they would invariably be compared to these iconic heroes.
Right.
So instead, plus they also represent very specific kind of archetypes.
Right.
So this time I wanted to go a little different. I wanted to tell a story about characters of shades of gray, and I wanted to show a company man instead. I've always been very curious about Weyland-Yutani, curious about the inner workings of that company, about their motives with the alien, definitively how they got the alien in the end. Would it have to be the way, spoilers, after Alien 3, they do kind of get their hands on it, but in a very, backdoor kind of way. And I just kind of asked myself the question, was that really when they first got the first alien? What if there was another one before this? And I wanted to see the inner workings of the company. I wanted to show a guy that was not as obviously a hero, an action hero, sure, but not necessarily a good guy. Someone at the end of his life, or end of his career, at least, kind of looking back on a career of shady decisions. And he has to kind of get back in the saddle one last time to save his son and kind of question what he wants his legacy to be.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm very proud of Gabriel Cruz as a character. I think he's very complicated. He's a character that I like to root for. He's just tough as hell.
Right.
I know people like him. But I know people who would make decisions kind of like he's made in his career. But they're not anything like Ripley or Shaw. He's somebody who was loyal his whole life, and kind of gets thrown away anyway. And then at the end of his life, he's kind of looking back on what he's done and questioning his decisions, and has to make a choice that will define his legacy forever.
Right, and that's not coming up in this issue, but it's coming up sooner than we think. And how did you get Sal de la Rocca on the art? Because I know he was just coming off Doctor Doom and was nominated for an Eisner with that. Did you get to
they
choose Salvador LaRocca, or was he kind of like just thrown in there?
they picked him. Marvel was like, we want to put you with Salva. I was like, I'm not gonna say no to that. He's
Right.
I mean, I heard he was this monster Alien fan, and you know, he's got gear that is like, he's got replicas of stuff from those films.
Dang.
He's a super fan. And the thing about the Alien is that it's kind of hard to draw. Like it's so detail oriented that drawing them over and over and over again is super time intensive. And Sal is just great with details like that. Like he does not mind that kind of work. And so he's just a great choice for it.
100%. I actually thought that the main character, Gabriel Cruz, looked a little bit like Salvador.
Not clearly.
First.
No. Yeah. So Gabe's clearly modeled off of Gabe, off of Salva.
Right. I kind of love how in this issue he like coming to the rescue. I'm like sitting there from like, oh, Salvador LaRocca to the rescue. Pretty cool, right?
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, this book is a lot of fun. Dealing with kind of the resistance to the Yutan. Can you talk about that a little bit? The development of that organization and how Gabriel's son is part of it.
Yeah. So, I mean, Gabriel Cruz kind of gave up his family for the company. Like there's a mystery about what happened that we don't see yet, but we eventually will find out what happened exactly in the old days. But he clearly made some kind of decision in the past that he gave up everything for his career and for the company that he worked for. And his son has grown up now. He's a grown man, and he has a lot of resentment against Gabe and also against the company. And he's kind of fallen in with this organization called the Second Hand Movement that it's sponsored by the United Americas. There's a big it's like the EU but in North America by then, and it's kind of in opposition to Weyland-Yutani. Like the world's already it's on the cusp of becoming very corporation versus sovereign nation. And we're going to see that continue to play out in the future arcs as well. So he is in what some would consider a terrorist organization, what others would consider to be, just trying to prevent Weyland-Yutani from, killing the damn world. And yeah, so his dad is basically directly responsible for the radicalization of his son. And that's what sends him down that path that kind of blows everything up.
Right. And can you talk about a little bit, not going completely into spoilers, because you guys, the third issue of Alien came out, and we're also going to talk about Action Comics a little bit more today. Not a little bit, a lot more today. Both came out today, so if you can just give us a quick rundown of all the teasers coming into Alien 3 for those who are excited to read the book or haven't read it yet, or thinking about picking it up.
Well, Alien 3, okay, so I want all these aliens, all the arcs of Alien that I do, I want them to feel like the films. I wanted these series to feel like they belong on the shelf with the movies. I want people to watch Alien, Aliens, Alien 3, and then read these books. So with that in mind, there was a little bit of criticism from some people at the first issue, like, man, there's not enough aliens in it, where it's the first of 6 issues. And if you remember in that first movie, you don't see the facehugger until you're almost like an hour in or something. So I'm trying to build the way that a film does. I didn't want to just be like, boom, wall to wall action right out of the gate. Because I've seen comics like that. I've seen Alien comics like that. And the ones that I'd like better are the ones that are more character driven and kind of give you the slow build that the films 100%. Had. So, but now we are like in the thick of it. Now that issue 3 is out, this is when things really start to go bad. And like this, we were solidly in the second act now, and we start to see a lot more bad stuff going down in the station. There's a familiar face returns in issue 3 that I'm super proud of. We see we ramp up the gore a little bit. We see Gabriel Cruz meet an old friend from the station, and things don't go well. And yeah, I'm really proud of it. I don't want to spoil it for people who haven't read it because I know it just hit shelves. Right.
It just hit shelves today. And I know my LCS almost completely sold out of copies today. So that's really cool to see.
That's great, but sorry to hear that.
Yeah. So they could, well, there's always third eye. And question, can you explain the contribution that the Marines play?
Yeah, there's actually not Marines. These are defense agents that are
right.
Again, it kind of gets into the same, like the corporation versus sovereign nation thing. So these are not colonial Marines as we've seen in the past. We don't really get into this aspect of Gabe's character, but in the backstory, Gabe was himself a colonial Marine back in the day, and then he made the jump into corporate, and he became a defense agent at Weyland-Yutani, which is basically the same damn thing. So they've got their own private military that is very much like the colonial Marines that we've seen. And as you saw in issue 2, for those who've read it, when Gabe makes the decision to go back to Epsilon Station, where he made his career, now that it's in danger, they're like, "We're going to give you 2 defense agents to go with you," and he's like, "Nope, I want 5 cents. Like, give me 5 androids. I don't want guys with wives and girlfriends." And they're like, "You get 2 defense agents, and that's it." And the reason is because they're cheaper. They give them 2 living, breathing people because they are much cheaper to lose than synths, and also because they're a data threat. Like, they're afraid of like data being hacked or whatever after the fact.
Right.
So, and the whole job is off the books anyway because they can't, like, stuff is happening on the station that they don't want corporations to find out about. So it's easier for them to control the flow of data and all that. So, yeah. So the only military people you're going to see up there are Gabe and then those other two dudes.
Right. And I think like the really cool thing about Alien that is also being achieved in this book is you really want to put these characters first before the Xenomorphs, right? Because that's really why we're so attached to Ripley, why we're so attached to a lot of these other characters, is because they are themselves first and they're reacting to the Xenomorphs, you know?
It's important. Right. It's important to care about the characters. Like, 100%. You can't just throw them away. You can't just throw them away. Yeah, I can't have straw men that are just there to get ripped up.
Okay,
so.
Right. Because when they do eventually, or if they don't, right, or let's say they ever are in that scenario where they could possibly be killed by the Xenomorph, you want the reader to feel that 100%, just like in the movies, in Aliens, you know, when Ripley was almost dying in the lab, you know, getting almost choked out, like you were really like feeling, oh my gosh, is this the end? Or later when she was battling the Queen at the end of the movie. So it's a big testament to this book, right? That kind of
you want to feel
suspense.
That the betrayal with Burke,
right?
And when we've established even the characters who are unlikable, like the Bill Paxton character, you care about that person. Like you get to know who they are, and just knowing who they are, even the size of them that are not flattering, makes you care about them, invested in their story. So,
you can feel strong enough to root for when they turn around after betraying a team and get their head chopped off by a Xenomorph. You know, you can care about it that way. That's still achieving the same effect of caring or giving a character some sort of affection, both positive or negative. I also really appreciate this question, kind of a little bit of a segue into what I was just saying. The Alien franchise is great at building tension without showing the alien, like the motion tracker. How do you achieve the similar results in the comic medium? I'm a huge fan of that question. 100%.
Yeah, well, I mean, one important aspect of pacing in any comic is the page turn. And you want to make sure that the big reveals are saved for, like, whenever possible. The big reveal should be reserved for right immediately past the page. Like, you should be some kind of a, the action. Like, you got 2-page spread, and the action and dialogue should kind of propel you forward through the page to keep you looking at the next panel. And then at the very end of that second page, there should be some kind of a cliffhanger or some kind of something about to happen.
Right.
That compels you to turn that page, and then it's like, bam, that's when you hit them. So that's the page turn is all important in comics. Aside from that, it's just pacing it out, like not showing it too soon, but also showing enough where they feel like they haven't been ripped off. Like if we did, like in that first issue, all the alien stuff that you see primarily, like, until the very end of that first issue, all the alien stuff that you see is in flashback. And even then, it's not like a full reveal, like, boom, here it is, except for like the one dream thing. And that's like, a dream is not the same as really seeing it.
Right.
I wanted people to feel like they were buying an Alien book and get that really creepy visual, but not like you were in danger. Not in that big spread. There's not like any danger specifically. The danger comes when you see the flashback later and the guy's talking about, he's the one, defense agent is like freaking out about how he wasn't even supposed to be there. He's got to get out of there. His girlfriend's supposed to be taking him to this thing. He had his leave all turned in. It was all official, but they pulled his leave because somebody else didn't show up. And he's just freaking out. He's a total coward. He's just completely pissing his pants. and and then you hear this boom sound, and you see like a hoof hitting the ground. And we have not seen an alien with a hoof before, so it's kind of like a little tease that there's some different kind of a xenomorph that we haven't seen before. And then you see another boom thing, and then you see like a little hint of the alien in the shadows, and you see a little more, but you never see it completely. Then you see like a super duper close up of his mouth, but you don't ever see it completely. So that's things like that are how you build up tension, and you just tease it out, and without actually giving it away until you really have to, and then just in the most satisfying way possible. And you finally see the facehugger at the end of the first issue. And that, again, like the page turns we talked about, that's like a big moment where it's like it just compels you forward to, to read the next issue and see what happens next. And then there's a similar thing at the end of the second issue and the third, just to, try to keep people moving forward and, hanging in there for the rest of the movie.
100%. Kind of like a relationship, you just want to stay for the tease, and then it all's worth it at the end. Kind of like that. Sometimes it is.
I'll leave that to you.
The really cool thing about the xenomorph, which I think is very hard to achieve, which you do a great job, is you don't want to overplay it. Like, you should almost feel like a xenomorph is there, even when it's not specifically on the page. It can be achieved through the coloring of the book. Like when the room turns red, you really want to build that suspense, which again is one of my favorite parts of the book, is all that suspense mixed in with the character development, right? At the end of it is also a family book too, which is another cool subplot. A lot of it is between Gabriel and his son, which is a major fact that we're introduced day one. So that's also a little thing, a different thing that we saw in the movies is they're really focused around like peer relationships, not necessarily like a centric family.
Yeah, well, I would question that because in Aliens, 1986 film, a big part of it, at least I can't remember if it was in the original film, but I haven't seen anything but the director's cut in years. But Ripley finds out that her daughter, like she's trying to find her daughter because she's been in stasis forever. And Burke tells her that her daughter's recently died, and she died an old woman because she's been, she didn't get there until decades later. So there's that just feeling of loss. Like you see, she promised her daughter she'd be back for her birthday. And then she shows up, less than a year after she dies as an old woman. And then later in the, on LV-426, she sees Hadley's Hope, they find Newt. And Newt, represents that daughter that she lost, and Newt lost her family. They need each other, and they in a way that she kind of rebuilds a family. It doesn't ever really deal with Ripley's. I don't know if Ripley was married or anything like that. I'm sure there's some material somewhere that describes whether Ripley was raising her daughter on her own or not, but she kind of builds the surrogate family around her with Hicks and Bishop and Newt especially. Right. So yeah, I feel like it's a super important aspect of that second movie, and part of the loss in the third movie. The third movie is tough because
did I?
I hope not. I don't know.
I did not. I don't think I did.
No.
I think Michael is just old and hearing things.
He's horrified. Brandon's horrified.
Come on, Michael.
So yeah. Anyway, that's my take. I feel like the family thing was super important in 2, and I really wanted it to be a big deal in this one too. You also see the grandpa and Trudy as well. This is a big important thing to really get you invested in characters. It's all about detail, and showing you can't just show like an abstract person, and you need to see, having grandpa sing the little song with Trudy, and then she sings it too, and she's got the little animal that she's named and all that, and it just makes it, hurt more when you see it ripped to pieces later and realize that she's dead. Otherwise, if you don't have that stuff, you don't care about anyone. So
100%. I want to take this time to segue into Superman because we've been talking about aliens for quite some time. You also do have another book which people should be reading. 2 books actually, but kind of read like one. Superman in Action Comics. I always like to ask, how did you land that book, and kind of talk about it, your excitement towards that project?
Well, I was actually, my first DC book was an Aquaman annual that I did with Brian Cunningham and Amadeo Torturo. And then that relationship that I built with Amadeo led to The Last God in a roundabout way. Amadeo was doing, superhero stuff. Then he ended up doing things at Vertigo and asked me if I wanted to pitch an epic fantasy / horror book, like a horror book set in an epic fantasy, like a high fantasy world. So yeah, Amadeo and I continued to work on our relationship that way. And that caught attention. Like I think I got kind of a rep for being the guy who sinks way too much time into world building. And they wanted to put that to use when they were starting to talk about the 5G thing, where they were going to, this big, like, kind of reboot of the DC universe ended up not happening quite as planned. They wanted somebody to kind of help blow out the cosmic aspect of the DC universe. And I was on board to do some of that. So yeah, without spoiling what that was going to be like, as we kind of shifted visions a bit, and it became Infinite Frontier and Future State, we kind of we took a lot of the work that we had already done. Like there were so many amazing ideas coming out of that stuff, man. Like there were, things I didn't love, but there were so many things that I completely loved. Like I could not believe the creativity coming out of DC at that time. So many great ideas, and we wanted to do so many of them still, but we wanted to get to it in a more organic way. So we started to talk about how to get the Superman titles to where we wanted them to be, where we wanted Clark to be, where we wanted John to be, where we wanted Gotham to be with Bruce, but also with his heirs too, like the Robins, but also
with like what's next,
the Fox family and everyone else. So yeah, my cosmic plans kind of morphed into Superman plans, and Superman was always going to be part of it. And then we had this idea for Superman to make it this big, crazy Warlord of Mars type story.
Right.
And because we've seen so much Superman lately, he's so well humanized. We see him in the context of the Daily Planet and his cast that's so iconic and great. But all in the context of Metropolis. Also, there's not to say there's not been space stuff too, but we wanted to kind of spin it a little bit and just see how super a Superman story we can tell,
right,
and see his his godlike status across the multiverse. So that's what we're doing now, and with friends like Michael Conrad and Becky Cloonan, who are kicking ass on the Midnighter stuff and on the Wonder Woman stuff they're doing together. It's they're doing such great work and just lauded across the board. So
there's a fly there. Yeah, Michael and Becky, they're awesome. I can't give them enough praise, but we talked.
Michael Oeming as well. Sorry, I got to quote the artist as well. Michael Oeming is doing incredible.
Right, Oeming is fantastic. The whole creative team that we've had with Daniel Sampre, first two issues, Phil Hesser. I can't pronounce the name of the main Superman artist right now. On that,
Daniel Sampere is doing action.
Yeah,
are you talking about the guy doing
other guy doing Superman?
Scott Godleski.
That's always a tongue twister for me.
Yeah, I was calling him Scott Godlewski, which is how it looks, but it's actually Godleski, I believe.
Godleski. That's why I didn't want to try. I wanted you to take the first dib because I know you know him.
Yeah, Scott's a monster artist too.
100%. And I always like Superman is a character that everyone has their own interpretation, more so than most other characters, right? Kind of similar, like Captain America. It's like, who is your Superman? Like, who is your Captain America? All these different underlying questions. When I look at Superman, I see a very well-rounded person who's perfect in almost every aspect. The one thing that hasn't really been touched on coming off the Bendis run was how is Superman as a father? Because, he lost that privilege when John got aged up. What I really appreciate the most is Superman is learning in the mix of all this with Mongol and the alien race that is introduced in Superman book, is that he's learning how to be a father. Was that something that you wanted to achieve during your time trying to plan everything for 5G or knowing you were going to follow Brian Michael Bendis? Or was that a new idea to you?
Oh my God, for sure. Getting the right Superman as a father almost makes it too easy. I mean, I've got a son who means everything to me. He and I have a super close relationship. He's just a little boy. And when John was aged up in the story, I felt that loss. I felt that loss as a father who imagine taking a kid who was 10 and then he comes back and he's several years older.
Right.
And you've lost all that time, that super precious, those years that are so formative and they're gone.
Right.
And how angry I would be and bitter and sad at having lost that time with my kid. I would never get over that. And so we, instead of aging him back down, which I hope I'm not triggering anyone here because I know that comes up a lot online. A lot of people want him back as a little kid again. That's problematic for a lot of reasons. One of them is that John is not just in my books. He's in, there's all these other plans for John, and it would affect all the other books and all these things that have been set in motion long before I came aboard. So it wasn't really an option for that reason, but also because he actually went through that time. It's not like he just magically became older. He went through those years, including puberty. So I mean, to just undo all that, and now he's been with the Legion as well. To just undo all that time that happened with Legion, that happened on his thing with his grandfather and all that.
With his grandfather,
it just wouldn't make sense, and it would kind of screw the character. And now we've got this. We're in the situation where John, where they there is that loss. I mean, the Superman feels the loss of those years, and that sucks. But it's also it makes it very dramatic, honestly, and it makes him appreciate John even that much more, like that much more protective of him and in awe of his son, and just he just loves him so completely the way I love my own kid. And like every issue I can write with Superman and John is like a love letter to my own son. And it makes it just such a joy to write. Joy's not even the right word. It's almost sad to write him. Like it's just an emotional experience writing Superman with his son like that, because my own kid means so much to me. So it's been really great. Been very fulfilling. Right.
And even if you guys go follow Phillip Kennedy Johnson on Instagram, you'll see his that love for his son is always there on his Instagram. So based off our last discussion when over on IG Live, that's something that I really found cool in this book, because I know how close you and your son are, or I have an idea of how close you guys are. So I was like, guys, this is a love letter to his son, and it's great. Like you can tell that this issue, this story is written from a father, and that's the kind of father that I will want to be one day. I'm 20, so that's not coming just yet, but later down the road. So, and I know a lot of people out there can attest to that as well. Is that's the kind of father they aspire to be for their son, kind of being that mentor, being there for them, and really striving to be the best that they can be.
Yeah, I love seeing Clark as a dad. The Superman and Lois show is great, but I admit that I don't love it as much as everyone because the show, I mean, obviously it's a TV show and there's got to be drama. And sometimes Clark and Lois make mistakes and they do things that I myself as a father wouldn't do. And it's not the Superman I see in my head quite. I really like the way Tyler plays him. But he does make mistakes. I don't feel like the Clark in my headcanon would make. I don't want a Clark Kent that I can relate to. I don't want him making the same kind of dumb mistakes that I might make. I want him to show me the way always. I want him to always, not to say that he can't ever struggle. It's okay to put him in hard situations, but I don't want to see him making dumb mistakes that hurt his kids' feelings. And that's just not, I don't know. I want Clark to be not just super physically, but super, super compassionate and super wise and just the best of us always,
Right.
So that's how I try to write him. I try to write I try to write him as the father I aspire to be, not as someone who struggles the way that I do.
Right. And I think Superman, being in that position is seen as perfect, right? And I think all sons kind of perceive their fathers in the early childhood stages as being perfect, but later they learn that it's a very difficult job, and for someone who is supposedly as perfect as Superman to the human eye, you can definitely see the struggle that he's going through, and the efforts are there for him to be that person that is seen on TV, and we all can relate to Superman in that aspect,
Yeah.
Sometimes you can't always expect to meet the bar, but you can just give your best every day and learn to be better every day. And that's that's another theme that I'm really taking to heart in that book. There are a lot of things, and I'm even going to go as far to compare it as Frank Miller's Daredevil, in the fact that there's a lot of stuff you can take to your real life to make you better as a human being. Because at the end of the day, that comes first, is how you're treating yourself, how you're treating the people around you, and how you can be the best person you can be every day. So I sincerely just want to thank you for those lessons.
Oh yeah, dude. Well, thanks for reading. I really appreciate it. And the Golden Age arc that I wrote with Phil Hester on the art, and then the One Who Fell arc with Scott Godleski. Those especially are about Superman's relationship with John. And I think they're putting all those issues, specifically the Golden Age and the One Who Fell, those are going in a trade together, I believe.
Right.
And that trade is all about Supermen together, like kind of setting up what Tom Taylor's going to do, because that's going to be all about John. Tom's doing the John book,
right?
And this was meant to set that up, to establish the fact that John is like a Superman in his own right, and just talk and make the whole thing like a celebration of those two guys' relationship.
Right, and Tom Taylor, as everyone knows, is doing great things with Nightwing, which is my favorite DC character. So I'm happy that finally someone is showing him love for the first time since Chuck Dixon.
Yeah, dude, Nightwing's awesome. I love that character. I mean, the creative team is crushing it. Tom's doing incredible work. The artist Bruno is off the chart. He's established himself as one of DC's best people in that book.
One of their he's like the Russell Dodderman of that universe right now. So I can't give him enough love. But so you knew going into writing the dual Superman in Action Comics book that eventually you would just keep doing action and Tom Taylor would keep doing Superman.
Yes.
Okay, because that's what I've been telling everyone.
Yeah, no, that's true.
I'm just he's not leaving it, guys. Shut up. He's not leaving Superman.
Yeah, I got a couple of texts and like DMs like, dude, are you getting screwed? I'm like, dude, no. It's like I've been from the very beginning. I kept trying to tell people on shows like, I'm not going to be on this book forever. I didn't want to completely spoil what was happening. Like, yeah, I'm only going to be doing 3 issues. As I did several future state things.
Right.
And then I did the Infinite Frontier story, and then I did these like the 2 Golden Age issues, and now the One Who Fell is 3 issues. So I've been doing both titles for about half a year, to kind of funnel the Superman and John story into just into the Clark story, and then to make room for what Tom had planned for John.
Right.
I didn't want to give that away, but I also didn't want people to think I am the new Bendis and I will do 2 books for the next 3 years and all that. Like that was never the plan.
Right. Right. I don't think anyone can be the next Bendis. I don't even think Bendis could be the next Bendis. And even if you're asking me my own opinion, I don't think that Bendis is what Bendis used to be in Marvel. Still doing great work, but I think that his Marvel books, I enjoyed them a lot better. I enjoyed New Avengers, House of M were personal favorites. I do want to highlight, I don't do a quick shout out to John's Comics with Kids. He was another person that got me into The Last God.
Oh, man. Thanks so much, John. I appreciate that.
And he says, I see people giving PKJ more notice. Last God was easily one of my favorite comics the last few years. Epic story. Federico's art was mind blowing too.
Shucks. Yeah, Ricardo is incredible.
Right.
Well,
and
thank you very much, John, for saying that.
So that's coming from John, guys. And if you want to know how to trust your budget, and save your wallet, go to John. He only pulls like 10 books a week, or 8 books a week, which is a big testament to his patience. So with most books, so definitely if you guys need help with that, because that is a struggle for everyone in the community, definitely hit him up. It'll tell you exactly what books to invest in. And Last God making that cut is awesome, because I would recommend it to everyone too.
Thank you.
So hashtag read The Last God. We'll start that. But back to Superman, right? And I think a lot of things that people underestimate about Superman is his rogues gallery as well. And seeing Mongol, this is the best Mongol we've had in years. Talk about him as a villain, because he's like if Drax to me ever went bad.
Yeah, he's his own character. He gets, because of his physical design, he gets compared to people like Darkseid and Thanos and all that, because he's similar in design. And it's it's a fun challenge, because people think of him sometimes as the lesser Darkseid or the lesser Thanos and all that. And I thought it was time to turn that around and make him, like, not just distance him from those other characters and show what makes him different, but also make him more badass. And that was actually got a pretty nice setup that way in the Bendis run, where Mongol died and was killed by his son, and they established that Mongol is typically killed by Mongol's son, and that becomes like Mongol is a title like Pharaoh,
right?
And Mongol will kill his father and become the new Mongol, and that's how it's been going for centuries. So now we've got a Mongol that Superman has never met, with a slightly different design, but he's also just scary as hell. And part of that is kind of the cult of personality that he's establishing on Warworld. We're making Warworld a much richer, more complicated place. A place where I wanted to see a place where all culture is built around the concept of dominance. The way that the Fremen in Dune, their culture is all built around the concept of water scarcity, like everything, their religion, their music, their clothing, their weapons, everything is all about how little water there is on this planet. And I wanted to see Warworld like that, to feel that real, with its own languages and its own hierarchy between the Warzoons and then and all the slaves that they conquer from other planets as Warworld travels. The concept of the chain and what it means. The chain that you've seen on these people up till now is very important, and you'll see why that is. It's a real symbol
right.
of on Warworld.
Right.
And Mongol he holds the title, He Who Holds All Chains. So the concept is that when you dominate someone on Warworld, when you defeat someone else, you take a link of their chain to your own. So
right.
the more people you've killed or beaten, the longer your chain becomes.
Right.
And you might see that as a burden, but they see it as honorable. Like the longer their chain is, the more people they've killed. And the only one who does not wear a chain is Mongol himself, because he's
like the master of all chains.
He's the one. Yeah. Even in that throne room that you first see, the chains all lead towards that throne.
Right. Which is like a big testament to Mongol. It's really, like you said, it's asserting his dominance. And a lot of times we're not used to Superman rogues, because Superman to me is a character like we saw in the movies, and I think this is a flaw in the movies. Like a character like Steppenwolf, right? Superman there's no comparison. Superman is by far the most powerful character in the DC universe, next to Darkseid or Dr. Manhattan, so to speak. So what can you do to beat Superman? You have to create diversion. You have to be smart. You have to be deviant. You have to have that dominance over people, right? Which I thought was very cool, like the little twist at the end of issue 1031, which you guys should be reading today. If you're not, go read it. 100% go read it. Like right now, like after this, go read it. So that's something that I also really like in Mongol, is he's building an army, but not really building an army. He's mostly like building a plan to blind Superman and take him away from his game, so to speak.
I don't want to spoil anything. There definitely is a plan in place, and there's a on Warworld, they have their own questions about, like, how do you beat someone like Superman, and that question is being answered. So I can't wait for people to see what happens. It's going to be super exciting. Right. We're going to see the most epic version of Superman ever, and Warworld is turning into such a badass thing. I wish you guys could see what I've seen already, as far as the art that's been coming in. Superman's got his Justice League and his House of L crew. Mongol's got his crew too, and I can't wait for people to see that. Right,
and that's something again that has been teased, where we're kind of diving into not this issue that came out today, but the previous one. We're teased at the rebirth of a dead Kryptonian language, which if you want to speak on that, give a little tease for that, or however much you want to speak on that.
That's a big mystery, and I don't want to give away too much. I'll just say that I wanted the world. I mean, let me think. In the issue that came out the other day, I think there's 3 different original languages, pieces of 3 different original languages in that issue. There's Valkyrie, which is this ancient Kryptonian language that hasn't been spoken in a long time, like Latin for us, or ancient Greek.
Right.
Something that's not really used these days, or even just Old English, something that's just not around, but people still study, or did until Krypton blew up. And then there's a Warzoon language, and then there's that fragment that we see in the Warworld ship, and that language that's written on there is neither of those things. It's its own language, and it's super duper old, and that's where the deepest mystery lies, really. That of the stuff I've established. That, and those little symbols with the circles and lines between them, that's a functioning language that really works. And it's you're going to see more of it as in the issues that come too. And eventually, I like to put that language out there for people to study if they want to. The way that people, whenever you see Kryptonian or Kryptonese in the
I thought you were going to say Krakoa. I thought you were going to say Krakoan language.
Well, Krakoa is kind of like it's basically a font, right? Like you can just you can just turn it into English. Like once you realize what the letters mean, you're just reading English. And Kryptonian, the way that they use it sometimes was also kind of like that. That is not the case for the languages that we're putting in there now. Like they're legit.
Right.
So at some point, I'd love to put them out there, like in the back matter of a book or something. But we'll see.
kind of like a letters page almost. If the letters pages like, still exist, which I think letters pages should, because they're cool. They're cool. I like reading them.
Yeah, they are.
I don't know if I'm the only one who likes reading letter pages, but they're classic. And even like when you crack open a good Bronze Age storage book, reading those letter pages are fun as well.
That's fun. People asked me the other day. People asked me what the Warzone was saying to Superman when he was picking a fight, and I was like, well, why not? So I just went ahead and told her online on Twitter what the guy was saying. He was like, he's talking mad smack to Superman. Let's see. He was at one point he's making this big face. He goes like this, and if you decode the language, he's saying, "I'll split your skull like I split your mate, milk drinker." And milk drinker on War World is slang for like a baby, like somebody helpless. It's something right. A name that they call the weak. So it's really fun, man. Like honestly, the language is one of the things I love about this. It's super time consuming, but it's fun.
It's very developed. It's important to world building, which is, like you said, it's what everyone knows you for. Is the guy who wants to build a world. Donny Cates may build a symbiote era mythos, whatever he wants to build, but a world is right there as well. Legion of Comics, good friend, says, "Is Future State inevitable? Is it the inevitable conclusion for these characters, or can we expect these titles to deviate away from what we already read at the beginning of the year?" You want to speak on that? Maybe not give it too much away.
Let's see. Sorry, can you show it up one more time? Oh, I see. Future State inevitable conclusion. Yeah. I don't want to say that everything in that book was a promise, because that would be a big spoiler if that was the case. But I didn't want to tell a story that didn't count. I didn't want to just make up some random thing that wouldn't show up in the books. It's not going to happen necessarily just like that. Because, if you remember, technically that book was supposed to be happening 10 years after current events. I'm not going to say that Superman's going to be stuck on War World for 10 or 20 years in real time. But but it was definitely a foreshadowing of what's coming, and right. gave little clues to what he's doing up there. And I know some people were like, "What the hell? He didn't give us any exposition of what he's doing up there. He didn't explain what he's doing on War World. He didn't get away at the end. He's kind of left him up there." All the answers that people wanted from the Future State Worlds of War stuff, those answers are coming in the events of Action Comics. So I will say it ties in hardcore to what you saw in Future State. Yes.
Right. And I just kind of want to clarify some things about Future State. Future State was built to launch Infinite Frontier at the end of Death Metal. You had the theory of not just different Earths, like after Crisis of Infinite Earths, but you have different multiverses. So we're taking it to like that big scheme. That's Death Metal kind of concluded for us. Going into Future State is one of those multiverses, like a glance. Right. So it could happen. It could not. That's kind of the mystery that I've wrapped up in, or that I've concluded.
Yeah, no, it's true. Like the whole concept of the omniverse that's out there now. I'm not sure if that's an official term, DC, or not. It's a word that people are kind of throwing around,
or just a Twitter thing. It could be a Twitter thing. You never know.
Yeah, it's basically just a kind of a love letter to fans to say that whatever version of Batman that you believe in, whatever version of Superman or Harley or whoever that you love, that's real. That's canon somewhere. It just kind of it's not it doesn't nothing has been thrown away.
Right.
So there's always a possibility of seeing those characters come together in another story.
Right, or in a different multiverse, or in a different Earth, a different multiverse. In some multiverse, your theory is true. That's what they're saying eventually. If it didn't happen on this multiverse that they're telling right now, it could happen later on down the road.
I know it's kind of a non-answer, but it's this Action Comics is going to tie in a lot to what you saw, not just in Worlds of War, but also in House of L, which I'm pretty stoked about.
House of L, another good book as well. So there you guys go. And then like we talked about earlier, The Last God coming out. For those who didn't read it, that the hardcover is coming out in August. Before that, though, we have some more symbiotes coming out. We have some Carnage stuff. So do you want to talk a little bit about that? Because everyone loves a good symbiote story.
Yeah, man, I got approached. So coming out of King in Black at Marvel, I got approached by some editors over there that's like, dude, we're doing this event after King in Black called Extreme Carnage that we want you to be a part of. And so I got together with a kick-ass crew of creators. The writers are Clay McLeod Chapman, Steve Orlando, my co-creator of Kill a Man, Alyssa Wong, and the four of us are writing 8 issues of Extreme Carnage. It starts with Extreme Carnage Alpha, and then there's going to be a series of what they're calling one-shots of different, each one focusing on a different symbiote. And they're one-shots in the sense that each one does focus on a different character, but I don't want fans to think that they don't connect, because it's actually one linear 8-issue story. So if you dig the story, you're going to want to pick them all up and not just like, cool, I like Lasher, so I'm going to read the Lasher issue and not the other ones. You can do that, and you'll get a story that's specifically about Lasher, but there's also going to be breadcrumbs that take you from Extreme Carnage Alpha all the way to the last issue that's coming out in, I think, September. Right. So yeah, it's one linear story, but the ones in between, issues 2 through 7, all are focused the most on one specific character, but it all kind of ties together leading up to the conclusion.
100%. And this is a great team of I don't want to say fresher creators, but kind of more like the next generation, I think. I would say. Chapman's been doing a lot of stuff with symbiotes already. Alyssa Wong has been doing a lot of stuff with Dr. Afra. Of course, everyone knows what you're doing right now, because that's why they're here. And and then Steve Orlando, who's doing a lot of stuff over at Aftershock right now, and he's also doing a lot of stuff at Image with Commanders in Crisis. Yeah. So all very talented writers.
Totally. They kind of gave me the opportunity to be sort of like the showrunner for the event and just kind of write the narrative that is going to steer the whole series. But then everyone else is doing these one shots that focus on these characters while telling a story with me. So it's been super exciting.
That's awesome, to collaborate with a bunch of creators. You get to form those relationships, and then later on, right, you guys all grow together, all get your stories out. It creates a great tale. So I'm really looking forward to that as well.
Awesome, man.
And then we all, like we said earlier, we have the last go. Do you want to talk about that a little bit? Give a little teaser for the hardcover.
Dude. So
what's in it? What do we have to look forward to with that?
August 3rd. I want to say it's a 448-page book with every issue, all the 12 main issues of Last God, as well as Songs of Lost Children that Dan Waters did, with the source book with all the Dungeons and Dragons material. Extra art and all the lore from all the back matter and all the issues from the 12-issue main series. So much content. It's the biggest thing I've ever been a part of in comics, for sure. Right. And just an honor. It's a super sexy volume too. If you're a format snob like I am, it's just a beautiful, beautiful book. I cannot wait. I mean, there's people at DC that are very into just like, they're paper snobs. They want it to be like just perfect. And they've got this incredible hardcover design with the, dust jacket and the slip cover the whole thing goes into. It's just so beautiful. I just cannot wait to get my hands on it. I'm going to order as many as I can afford to get, just sell them the rest of my life. Just have them. I'm so proud of it, especially with the artists that we have in that thing. Just some of the best people working in comics. I cannot speak highly enough of this book and all the people that worked on it with me.
Right. And you guys know the artist we talked about earlier. If you guys did miss last card, that was the first kind of part of our segment introducing. But, Ricardo Federici, who you guys know from the variants that he's been doing, did this book. And I'm going to be ordering hardcovers. I'm probably only able to afford one, but I will be ordering it. And you guys should too. I did drop the link for everything. So if you guys do want to pre-order the hardcover, because I'm sure they will sell pretty quickly, contact your LCS first and foremost. So maybe you can call today, tomorrow if they're still open. If you are in a certain time zone, but tomorrow, definitely let them know that you want your hands on it, and they will order you one. Also, you can go to Amazon, but which is in the description below. But preferably contact your LCS. They'll give them the business, because that's how we can keep comics going instead of going straight to Amazon, as most of us do. But anything else you would like to plug or talk about?
I do have one more book that is not yet announced. Well, actually, a couple things that they did announce. I'm doing a short story in the Red Sonja, Black, White, and Blood series at Dynamite, which is pretty exciting. That's been really fun. I've never done Red Sonja, but I'm a huge Robert E. Howard guy, as well as Roy Thomas. I kind of credit both those characters, or both those writers, for creating that character. So get to put my stamp on Red Sonja's mythology is super exciting, with Steve Beach, who drew Songs of Lost Children with Last God, and also did Lost Boys Ebo Bremen with me years ago. Right. He was born to do this kind of stuff, so that's going to be exciting. I've got another story at DC coming out soon, and also another series coming out that I cannot talk about yet, but those are going to be huge announcements. The series is going to be this epic thing that I cannot wait to talk about. So very soon.
That's awesome, and I'm very excited. Even like because like being here and hearing you say, "Oh, I have something that I'm excited about," that I can announce it. I just get jittery. I just feel like, "Oh, I want to know." So
yeah, I'm sorry I can't, but
excited.
when I announce it, especially when you see who's doing the art, dude, you're gonna flip out. It's gonna be so great.
You know, I probably will, knowing me. But you know, I always look forward to those kind of things. I know you guys
No,
are just
it's so,
excited as people who will be reading it months later.
yeah, it's a perfect artist for this book, and it's oh my god,
right.
I can't wait.
Right, and as you know, you're always welcome on the show. So when List does hit the shows, you're always welcome to come back on the show and
Thanks, brother. I will.
just lore about it 100%. And you know, maybe if Michael steps up to the plate, we can get him on the show if he's here.
Yeah, I'm sure he'd love to. We can nerd out about MMA. So.
Oh, and I will be here, probably just laughing. But
sounds good.
All right, you guys. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Like I said earlier, I dropped all of Phillip Kennedy Johnson's information below in the description. If you guys are watching the replay, big shout out to you guys as well. I always do appreciate you guys taking the time to watch these videos and support the channel. And if you guys do like what you're seeing, give it a thumbs up and a subscription or subscribe, because you know it does go a long way in like the infrastructure that's YouTube and this channel going forward. So thank you guys so much. I do want to plug some of my own stuff coming on. I do have a short 15-minute segment tomorrow that I don't know what I'm talking about yet on Crisis on Infinite Rants Tag Team Thursday, which you guys know I don't know till like the night before. So I'll find something tonight to talk about for 15 minutes. Might be X-Men, might not be. Friday we have weekly wrap up. I have 2 guests coming on for that because Bryce is on vacation. That's where we take comics for the past week. So if you guys want to hear my thoughts on Alien in Action Comics, where you did not hear it today, those will be front runners for the show, as well as a bunch of books that came out today. Beta Ray Bill, more X-Men that came out as well today. And then Alex Sinclair will be the next guest on Creators Corner on June 19th. So stay tuned for that. He's also a returning guest from the transfer from IGTV onto YouTube. So thank you guys so much for all of that. And thank you guys for the support. And Phillip Kennedy, Phillip, thank you so much for your time as always.
Oh man, thanks so much for everyone who watched. I really appreciate it. Thanks for reading the books. Thanks for being so cool. Thanks for all the kind words. Much appreciated. Lots of cool stuff coming. So thanks again.
And once again, you guys, thank you guys so much for the interaction. Take care. Have a great night.